You're sitting just a little bit further away from your mic. And as you know, I always tell clients, sit up straight, lean into the mic, because your body language is everything. We don't want our viewers to think that you're being defensive. We want them to think that you're confident in answering all questions and making coherent statements, and everybody in the room could hear you. Anyways, that's the spiel that I give to clients. But David just recently asked, whether I've testified in court. And as you know, I've testified hundreds of times because you've heard me tell this to clients. But you're always nervous, right? Always nervous, And I think people that aren't nervous when they go into court, they're going to lose, because that's called being cocky and thinking that you know it all, right? So you're looking good. You're close enough to the mic. Let me hear you. Say hi, Don.
Hi, Don.
Okay.
Is good? Close enough?
That's good.
Okay.
So, we're going to be talking about an appellate court decision, and the holding on it is really not the biggest holding in the world. It's not the biggest case in the world, but we've got some facts that are fun to talk about. I thought before we do that, we'd have some fun talking about our recent court experiences. Just yesterday, I went to Ventura County, drove all the way by my little lonesome. It took me about an hour and a half to get there. I don't know if I've ever been in that courthouse before, but I've been to Ventura County on legal matters, but I think that was the first time I appeared in the court. I could tell you that it's not a bad drive post-COVID. It's kind of scenic. If you leave, an hour and a half's not that bad. But the courthouse, you would think that you were in an industrial complex. It's kind of like the one that you would see in, I don't know if you've ever been to Rancho Cucamonga. Have you ever been to that courthouse?
No, I haven't.
Okay, so picture yourself in an industrial complex, and you're going in there and you're looking for the courthouse and you can't see it because they're just these buildings. That's what it looks like. They have this government complex, and it's really, really large. I mean, it's acres and acres of property with, it looks like a walking path around it, but you wouldn't know that there's a courthouse there unless you look really closely and you saw the sign. I can't think. You've been to the Chatsworth Courthouse before.
Yes.
Now that's a real pretty courthouse, but surrounding it is an industrial area, right? So this one out there kind of reminds me of the industrial area surrounding the Chatsworth Courthouse. I think as attorneys, we like to think about the courthouses a lot. I mean, it's part of our profession. I've got my favorites, so I thought I'd start off today by asking you, what are your favorite courthouses that you've been in, or that you've actually seen?
I don't think I have. So I don't know if I have a favorite courthouse. I would agree that the Chatsworth one is pretty nice. I haven't been to as many as you have. I've been to obviously downtown, Stanley Mosque, Pasadena, Van Nuys, which is like probably my least favorite, aesthetically speaking. Van Nuys, Chatsworth, Whittier. I would say my top would be maybe aesthetically, would be maybe Chatsworth, and I kind of like the Whittier courthouse because it gave you like a homey feeling.
Yeah.
It was a small one and it was pretty new. It wasn't too outdated. And I think for me, knowing where the parking lot is and having a parking lot that's easily accessible, those are I guess the top, priorities. So I think Whittier had a lot that was like free or like $5, which is like cool, you don't see that with the downtown courthouse. So I would say probably Chatsworth, Whittier, and then Stanley Mosque, and Pasadena, then Van Nuys.
Okay.
Like in that order.
Okay.
And those are all the ones I've been to so far. So.
You're probably forgetting one or two that you've been to, but that's funny. That Whittier, I think, you're right. It's not so much always the look, it's the feel when you're there, right? And the Whittier one was changed to a family law courthouse after the banks had collapsed, and they closed down a bunch of the, and we're talking about like 2008. They closed down a bunch of courthouses. That was one of them. It used to be a criminal mixed like most of them, but then they reopened it as a family law courthouse. And you're right. I mean, what's nice about there is there's just this real calm vibe, which is unusual for family law cases. It's because it's not overcrowded, and the clerks were real happy to see us. Remember that we went in there. So yeah, I agree. That's got to be one of the top ones for me. If we're talking about modern courthouses, Chatsworth I think is a good choice for you, but you haven't been to Long Beach yet.
I haven't.
Oh my
No.
God! So the ones in the L.A. County that are pretty spectacular are Chatsworth, uh, the Long Beach one, and then there's the airport courthouse. You'll see the airport courthouse when you're driving to LAX. You'll see it right off the road. It's this very modern building. They're all pretty similar, but if I were to rank the top one out of that, you have to go to Long Beach. Long Beach was finally built after years of a decaying, horrible courthouse over there. And, it makes you feel proud of your profession and the Constitution and, red, white, and blue and all that stuff. And you go in there and you go, man, I can hang out here. And they have all the modern things inside the courtroom, as far as the ability to plug in and the screens and all that. So I would say modern-wise, yeah, I could find myself in Long Beach a lot. I'm surprised you put Pasadena higher than Van Nuys, because Pasadena Courthouse, I know it's close to us.
Right. I feel more comfortable. I think I was also judging it off of comfort.
Yeah. Okay, I agree, because it's our home court. But I can't complain. We've got a courthouse in our city. It's 5 minutes from the office. Okay, I like that. But that is one of the ugliest courthouses I've ever been
Agreed.
in. For the longest time, the elevators don't work and and stuff like that. But at least it's close by. Now let's talk about some real courthouses. Okay, courthouses you've never been in and you've got to in your legal career.
I've been to a couple of federal courthouses during school. So I did like a mock, trial. I was taking a trial advocacy class, and the professor was a judge. So he had us go into his courtroom. It was pretty intimidating because it's much bigger than the state courthouses, and the judge is real far away from you, and he's sitting up higher than in state courts. And it was, even though it was like, just an assignment, it was pretty intimidating. So I don't think I'd want to be in a federal courthouse.
It's funny you say that.
Yeah.
I've got a couple of friends that do all their work in federal court, and it's extremely formal. And like you said, it's intimidating because it's so formal looking, but beautiful. So I don't think I've ever, I know I haven't. I've never handled a case in federal court, but I have handled a case in a lot of the old courthouses that are out here. And I like the old stuff, because I love history. I would say that I'm going to name some of my favorites, okay? Then I'm going to rank them, okay? So the San Bernardino old courthouse there, if you ever get a chance to go there, it's magnificent. It's got the old brass rails that lead up to the steps. And I am old enough where I've practiced in the old courthouses before the modern ones were built. Back in Chicago, actually I didn't practice. As a cop, I appeared in front of our county courthouse. So I know what that feel like. It's almost like you could smell the cigars, inside there, and there used to be there's so many stories with these old courthouses and stuff. But here in California, San Bernardino is a must. If you're an attorney, you have to go there. Then I think that the Santa Barbara courthouse. Now, if you ever go there for a weekend with your husband and you've got nothing else to do, go walk by there. Try to get into it. I don't know if you could get into it on the weekend or anything, but everybody that's been in there is like, oh my God, it's so beautiful. I don't think there's any old courthouses in L.A., but I understand that there's a courthouse in Catalina. Did you know that?
No. I
Yeah.
didn't.
Yeah, there's people that practice at the Catalina. They have to take the boat in the morning to go over there. The court is only open, I guess, a couple times a week.
Wow.
And so the judge and the attorneys get on the boat and they go over there and do their thing and then come back. Yeah, that's one that I want to go to. Let's see, where else do I? The Santa Ana Old Courthouse, which is there, but they have more of a museum. It seems to me that in the United States we ought to preserve our old courthouses. I mean, there's just something about that, and not make them into apartment complexes or, things like that. But try to use them too. The Hall of Justice, which is downtown, that you've probably not noticed when you go down there. But if you take Hill Street and you go past Chinatown, up over that hill when you're coming down towards the library, right before you hit the Criminal Courts building, there's the old Hall of Justice, and it's got so much history to it in there. And they've refurbished it, and they're using it again, and stuff. And that's what we should do with our courthouses, I think. I think this is appropriate because we're talking about 4th of July, and all the history and stuff, with this country.
Yeah, I love history too, and I think if you preserve it in the right way, it could look nice, but not like Pasadena, where that's not what you consider when you say old. More
No.
historic, and that would be cool.
Yeah. If you're talking about preserving the going back to the San Dino Courthouse. Inside the rooms that I were in, the courtrooms, they've even done the inside of them where they've put the old pictures of the judges on the
Wow.
walls and stuff. You're still practicing family law. It's not like you're you know, you still got people arguing against each other. But to me, it's kind of fun. Okay, so we have a case to talk about today, and it's going to be a quick holding. The holding was what, basically?
So the case is Marriage of Carlisle. It was only a small part of the decision was published, but basically the holding is that even an injunction such as a domestic violence restraining order could be renewed even if it's up on appeal during this time. So, in the case, wife had a 2-year restraining order, which she moved to renew. But because the appeal to the initial restraining order was still pending, husband disagreed with the court, and the Court of Appeals upheld the trial court in holding that the trial court could properly renew the original restraining order even though the husband's appeal was still pending.
Very interesting, to the extent that what we're learning is that the first restraining order was being appealed.
Correct.
Okay, and during that appeal, was the restraining order stayed?
No.
It wasn't, right?
No.
And so then wife coming up, because appeals take a long time.
Right.
So wife goes in there and she says, hey, I want a renewal, and it's granted. And then the husband appeals that decision and says, wait a minute, you can't do this because there should have been a stay. Okay, and the Court of Appeal disagreed with the husband.
Correct. The court disagreed, and the standard is as long as it serves the ends of justice, it could be renewed, and the court thought it did in this specific case, so it renewed it and it upheld the trial court.
Okay, so what happens if the first appeal, the husband prevails and the original restraining order is done with?
That's a great question. I had the same question. I have no idea because you can't really take that back, right? I mean, it's already.
I'm sure that there would be a dismissal. Now we're going to talk about this case here, and I doubt that that's going to happen because it's the facts of these cases that is the reason why I wanted to talk about it. But it just seems to me that when we're talking about protecting people's safety, that the Court of Appeal just made a common sense, choice here and said, no, you know what, we're going to allow these restraining orders to continue to be issued, and they're in full force and effect pending the appeal. Because what are we going to do? We're going to allow people that are, committing domestic violence or harassing people to get a time out, or time off. You get the next 2 years to continue your harassing because you filed a frivolous appeal.
Right.
So,
I think it would open the door to people doing this, abusing the system. So.
Yeah. Okay. So now let's talk about the juicy part of this case. That has nothing to do with necessarily the decision, but we've got two parties. Now, are they married in here, or are they already divorced?
So I think it was during the pendency of the dissolution. So they were separated, but legally I think they were probably still married.
Okay. And talk to us about the occupations of these two people.
So they're both attorneys, and the wife is actually a family law attorney from what it looks like. I think the husband probably did practice civil law, but I don't think he was a family law attorney.
Okay. And they're in Northern California?
I believe so.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, they are. And so what was interesting to me about this case is the type of harassment that we had, right? Because they're both attorneys, same profession, same county, same courthouses, their paths crossed a lot, right?
A lot, yes.
Yeah, people say in the legal profession, and I think this is so true, is that it's a small world. Even here in LA County, which is probably one of the busiest counties in the world for legal matters, we all know each other practically, right? I mean, at least in the family law bar. But you go up to places like Sacramento, and by the way, I've been in that courthouse, and I'm going to tell you that some courthouses are like the DMV. We talk about the industrial. That's one right there. You walk in there and you go, is this supposed to be uplifting? So anyways, they're up in that very small world over there of attorneys, and they're crossing each other. And that means that what? They've got mutual friends, mutual associates, colleagues. What happens?
So there were a couple instances where, for example, they had a hearing on the family law case. They're divorced, and then the wife happened to have a hearing in the same courtroom for one of her cases, and the husband would, say things to her, make comments, oh, I should have never gotten married, or approach her while she's with a client and say she's not a good family law attorney because she had to hire her own attorney in our divorce, say things like that to the wife. And there was another instance, I think, where he made a false claim that he was representing her in a civil case. I think maybe personal injury. I'm not sure what type of case it was, but things like that happen all the time. And, in the courtrooms, in the hallways, and, he would say things about her to mutual friends, colleagues, other practitioners, things like that, which she considered to be harassment. And the court agreed with her.
Yeah, and it was harassment, and that's just a little bit of what he was doing. He was also doing the standard usual things like coming around the house.
Right, driving by and putting a 20-foot banner at the end of the road. And
what was that, a banner?
he put a 20-foot long birthday banner for their daughter, who was also protected by the restraining order. And I guess her and their daughter lived on this secluded part of town where there was only one road leading up to the house, so he blocked the road with this huge birthday banner, and he admitted to doing this also in his pleading. So
yeah, so crazy. Abe Lincoln said, what about, he said, a man who represents himself has a fool for a client, right? So this attorney, in spite of the fact that he's schooled in law, was representing himself throughout
Right.
the trial and up on appeal. Court of Appeal really spanked him, didn't they? I mean, they had some pretty harsh language for him, I think. If you read the decision, they respond to his arguments in a very curse way, more than normal.
right, maybe he should have also gotten his own attorney, because he made fun of the wife for having an attorney
Yeah.
during the divorce, and it seems like he should have done the same. Maybe.
Yeah. I think he doesn't do himself a favor either. I mean, what's he going to do in practice-wise? He's going to be enjoying from being close to her, right, 100 yards away. And his excuse here was that we have the same profession, so I can't possibly do that.
Mm-hmm.
But believe me, a court can do that. The court could say, look, dude, you've violated all your trust, with the court. You're coming within 10 feet of her while she's with clients. You're making disparaging comments. You're talking to colleagues, about her in her presence, and in situations that really are just going to hurt her. We're going to now exclude you. You're not going to be coming to these courthouses while she's there or whatnot. I mean, it's almost like I don't know what the result would be, but you would think that he'd maybe have to practice somewhere else. If he maintains his license, and stuff. I don't know if any of this stuff would have gone to the state bar, but man, it was horrific with respect to going into the court and messing with their clients like that.
So I actually Googled him on the website to see if he was still licensed, and yeah, he's still active. So
Yeah. I mean, it's so wow. I mean, I just thought that I've seen a lot of cases before, and a lot of the people out there have emotional issues, right?
Right.
And it doesn't matter what the profession
exactly, it doesn't matter. I think the more, I mean, it's interesting because we have some pretty high professionals as our clients, and CEOs and doctors, and it doesn't matter. People will act how they act and let their emotions get the best of them, and sometimes the ones who are on paper are more professional act crazier than the ones who
I
aren't.
agree 100%. I think that when I started getting into family law, I assumed the opposite.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that the more learned, educated people would take the high road. High road has nothing to do with intelligence or
Nope.
with degrees or anything like that. In fact, like you said, there's some of them are the craziest. The hardest people to represent are attorneys.
Right.
And you would think, no, are you kidding me? But sure enough, they want to jump in and take over the case, and if they, even if they do some family law, they want to file motions that don't make sense and things like that and stuff. So attorneys are very difficult clients. This guy was a difficult client for himself. I think second to that are cops. Now, cops only because of the fact that they're used to getting their way.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, I know. We've had a couple. I think I've only had one. Or I currently have one client who's an attorney, but luckily, it's not hard working with her, but cops for sure,
Yeah. Yeah.
especially if they're on the other side.
Oh my God. Yeah. And now, I love representing cops because I'm a former police officer, and I just have this thing that I just want to go to bat for them. But whenever I take a case on it, it's like, okay, take a deep breath and go, here we go, because most of them are all the same. It's like they don't want to be told what to do, by the court, because they're used to being in charge all the time, and stuff. So, very interesting. Well, what lessons did we learn from this decision, if any?
I mean, legally speaking, I guess it's good to know that an injunction such as a DVRO is not stayed pending an appeal, and it could even be renewed during that time. I think that was the biggest legal takeaway. Otherwise, don't represent yourself, especially in an appeal. Appeals are pretty technical, and you should always try to hire someone to help you out with that. And I think just appealing DVROs in general it's pretty difficult to do that. And I know we're always very careful with our clients whenever they want to appeal a restraining order, because judges always, the trial court always does a good job of preserving the record and making factual findings. So I think they're pretty tough to overturn on appeal.
Yeah, I mean, if they made factual findings, it's going to be really, really hard. I'm very surprised. I think, what happened with him is what happens with a lot of people is that he doesn't care anymore about the legalities. He just wants the fight,
right?
And stuff. And
right.
So he got his fight, and there you go.
Right, and I was surprised that the initial restraining order was issued for 2 years, I believe, and appeals do take long, but I mean it could have definitely been done during that time. So I was surprised to see the appeal still pending while the renewal.
Was it during COVID? Was this
No, this was back in 2015.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow. Let's assume that he violates the restraining order. Then what does the wife do?
So I think he did. I mean, one of her claims on the renewal was that he did violate the restraining order during the time it was still in effect.
Okay, but what remedies does she have? She's got contempt, right?
You mean during after it's renewed, or during that time it's on appeal?
Well, while it's still in effect,
Yeah,
active.
definitely, because it's a valid order, and if he's violating it, then one, she could use that for the renewal, and two, she could go in and file a contempt against him.
Yeah, so it can only get worse for him, I would think.
Right.
I mean, he gets a contempt now. He's got a criminal trial. I don't know how the state bar would deal with that, but now you're getting into some serious stuff, and then violating it again and again and stuff like that. So, these restraining orders do have teeth if they're handled the right way, if they're enforced the right way. So cool. Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I'll see you next time.
See you.